Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and we are jumping into the next right thing with Debbie and Adam, talking about strong women. It's all over this week. Film Cabrini, International Women's Day, and so much more. Debbie and Adam, good morning.
Good morning, Keith. Thank you so much for having us on The Next Right Thing. And yes, the phone lines are open if you'd like to highlight that strong, virtuous, holy woman in your life. It's 877-757-9424. If you feel prompted by the Spirit, now's the time to call in. You only have less than a half an hour to do it, to shout to the world that beautiful woman in your life. And hopefully it's the Blessed Mother. We can highlight the Blessed Mother. Absolutely. This strongest woman, and that's amazing. But Adam and I are going to talk about Rhoda Wise, and we will go into a little bit of her story because it does relate to Mother Angelica. But real quickly, Adam and Keith, Keith, you mentioned that in light of International Women's Day, it is the opening day for Cabrini, the movie. I cannot wait to see it. I bought my tickets already. I'm so excited. Marty and I are going to be there, and I hope to get to talk to people coming out of the movie theater and see what their thoughts were about seeing this great saint. But we here at Morning Joy are focusing on holy women. And that's very, very important. So if you have somebody you would like to talk about or share with the world, please call in 877-757-9424. And Adam, you're going to rewind a little bit back to Mother Angelica's life and about the healing that took place with Rhoda Wise at the center of this, and share a little bit with our audience exactly who Rhoda Wise is.
Sure, Deb. I'm happy to. So Rhoda is actually, her cause for sainthood has been put forward, and she was declared a servant of God in 2016. So here she is in Canton, Ohio, in the United States, and one of our rare saints, hopefully, in the future. Right now she's a servant of God, so she's kind of in the process. But she's got a fascinating story, and you can still visit her home today, so we'll get to that. So Rhoda's story really starts in the Great Depression back in the 20s and 30s. She was very poor. Her husband had a number of kind of personal issues that were, difficult for her. And in the 1930s, Rhoda started developing some real serious health problems. Ultimately, she had a 39-pound ovarian cyst develop that had to be removed, and, can't imagine how painful that was. So in 1936, she was in the hospital, and they had done this massive surgery on her abdomen, and she was, in a long recovery process. And she was not Catholic at the time, but she was being cared for by Catholic religious sisters. And they taught her about the Rosary. They were teaching her about Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, other things about the Catholic faith. And she was, experiencing a conversion process. She was very moved by all of this, and God really touched her. So in 1938, she converted to the Catholic faith, and that really started her journey within the Catholic faith, and really started bringing her much closer to Jesus, as we'll see. So in 1939, just the next year, she was diagnosed with an incurable stomach cancer. And it was so bad, Deb, that they actually sent her home just to pass, to die at home, because there was nothing more they could do. Now, she maintained her faith, and she maintained her devotion. And she maintained her praying of the Rosary. And she started having basically visitations from Jesus. She was having experiences where she was literally seeing Jesus, appearing to her, sitting by her bedside and talking with her. And then Jesus said he would also send Saint Thérèse, or he would come along with Saint Thérèse as these visits continued. Now, we don't know everything that purportedly they were discussing, but we have a few things that were recorded. Now, here's one of the fascinating things, Deb, one of the amazing things, and there's a number of them, about Rhoda and her home. She had no electricity. They were very poor. But when Jesus would come and visit her, there would be an incredibly powerful white light, and this would happen in the evening. And there's one photograph at least that I've seen that they still have from those days. Of course, it's black and white because it was back in the 1930s, where there was crowds of people that would gather around the house to watch, because when Jesus supposedly appeared, this light would stream out of the house, and you see it, and it's like a shaft of light coming out of the windows, like blinding, as if you imagine like the old spotlights they would have at a movie premiere, you know, that kind of like incredibly powerful light. And people would come just to watch this as kind of a sign. So there was a number of kind of amazing things going on. Now, Thérèse visited her at one point along with Jesus, and they basically said, you know, I don't know the exact words, but my sense of it from talking with Karen, the current caretaker, and reading the stories, essentially her faith and perseverance in spite of her pain and her medical problems, heaven decided to cure her of her cancer. And at that point, she was cured. These regular visits from Jesus continued for a number of years. Now, on Good Friday in 1942, about 3 years after she was cured of the cancer, you know, she was sent home to die, don't forget. So her death was probably fairly imminent, according to the doctors, but she was cured, and here we are a number of years later on Good Friday. And at that point, her stigmata started, which is when people kind of exhibit the wounds of Christ. And for her, it started with her head, and it moved on to the other wounds. You know, there's 5 traditional wounds: the hands, the feet, the head, the side, and then sometimes the right shoulder, where the wood was carried. So she starts experiencing this on Good Friday in 1942. And of course, you know, people are very interested in this, and apparently she was moved to, or probably told to, not hide this from the world. And so they allowed people to come and see her. Now remember, people were already interested in this house and this woman because of this blinding white light that would stream out of the house in the evenings when Jesus would visit her. So there was a lot of public interest already. But here's where it gets super interesting about strong women. So not only was Rhoda strong in terms of her faith, right, and her willingness to bear some of the pain of Christ and his passion, but a woman that we may not know her by Rita Rizzo, but we know her by the name Mother Angelica, was a young woman in 1943 who was having very painful stomach problems that the doctors couldn't cure. Sounds a little familiar, right? Rhoda had a ovarian cyst, and then she had stomach cancer. Well, here's Rita Rizzo, who's a teen at the time, and her mother had heard of this amazing woman and the things going on at this house, and had heard that this woman had prayed with some people and they were healed. So her mother takes Rita Rizzo to visit with Rhoda. Rhoda guides her in a novena to Saint Thérèse, and at the end of the novena, as the final prayer was said after 9 days, Rita Rizzo's stomach pain disappeared, and as far as I know, never came back. Mm-hmm. Now this likely at least contributed to Rita Rizzo's vocation, calling, and her commitment to that calling, because we know that she went on to become a nun, and she went on to become Mother Angelica and the founder of EWTN, which, you know, talk about a powerful woman, has really had an impact on the entire world and continues to do so. Now, the stigmata started in 42, and in June 28th of 1948, so a number of years later, so 6 years later, the final visit happens from Jesus, and he says it's the final visit. And interesting here, and this touches on other apparitions of Mary, Jesus asked her to pray a rosary daily for the conversion of Russia. Mm-hmm. And so we see a touchstone with other apparitions and visits from heaven around the world. Very shortly thereafter, Rhoda passed and died related to her hypertension. But do you have any thoughts on that story so far?
Well, the Russia connection is very interesting, and we're going to be talking more of apparitions that are approved and some that are still the church is looking at. But yes, obviously, the Rhoda Wise house is in Canton, Ohio. People can visit there. They can, you can make an appointment to have a tour and watch the video and the history of it. There's the Mother Angelica Museum right there. There's all sorts of, you can sit in the Jesus chair. Hopefully you can be in that chair. Also, Rhoda Wise's rocking chair that's there as well. It's extraordinary. I got to visit the house. It really was, there's more I'll share actually in the next few months about that, because it's a very interesting experience. It's actually changed my life. And there's more, but we don't have enough time today for that. But I agree with you. And talking about these strong women, I mean, let's go all the way back to the Old Testament. There's a ton of strong women in the Old Testament. You know, you have Esther and Deborah and Ruth, and it goes on and on and on. And then, of course, the Blessed Mother. And then you've got Mary Magdalene. You've got all sorts of female characters throughout the Old Testament, New Testament that is so important. But then you talk about Rhoda Wise, right? And this very quiet woman who lived a beautiful life and very faithful to the Lord, being visited by Jesus and Saint Thérèse of Lisieux, and then being part of that miracle for Mother Angelica, which then went on to start the biggest religious media network in the world. Okay, so you look at all the puzzle pieces being put together, and you see these very quiet, holy women behind the scenes doing their part to be faithful to God. I think it's extraordinary. I really, really think that that we should do more shows on this. And as a matter of fact, Adam, maybe we could highlight some spirit world shows on this, because I think it's important, because that is true. That is true strength. Coming from women, and that's important. And it's not the way the world describes it. It's the way God has designed it. And I love that. You guys just shared some beautiful highlights of the strong women in your life. So Keith, who's the strong woman in your life?
I mean, my mom, obviously, but I would say I would highlight my wife, because not only is she like the main caregiver of our children and also making sure our house doesn't fall apart, but she's also like a caregiver for her grandfather. I don't know how she does it. Mm-hmm. It's incredible, and I probably couldn't do half of the things she does. So she's definitely a testament to being a strong woman.
That's wonderful. And you, Tim, you made a beautiful comment about your mom.
Well, I just want to shout out to my mom. She's in Oregon now, but we grew up in the South, and she had to marry young to get out of a dysfunctional home, but. And so she ended up having to figure out how to be an adult and a wife all at the same time. But then she put herself through nursing school while raising 4 kids and kind of breaking out of these restrictive habits that are in the South on women in some ways. And she modeled for me like what it means to be a strong person who's 100% devoted to Jesus. And I credit my love for the Lord to her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. And this is why we wanted to highlight strong women, because honestly, let me just share this with you, Adam. You know, I'm a woman, okay, and I consider myself relatively strong. I've gone through 2 bouts of cancer, still fighting another one that I've been going through for a long time, and I'm a survivor, thriver, trying to be, and I work really hard at ministry and a strong prayer life and trying to do God's will as best I possibly can. But I will tell you that strong women have gotten a bad rap in the world, because the world wants us to be these feminist, militant type women that are leading the charge for all these women's rights. And that's not like of God. And I think that we should devote maybe even a whole week on strong, virtuous women who are trying to live out God's plan and will, and really just be a part of something that is beautiful for the body of Christ. And I think to our founder of Guadalupe Radio Network, she is a strong woman, Toya Hall, but she's the most prayerful woman I think I've ever met in my life. I mean, she's constantly taking things to prayer. And Mother Angelica, same way, she did the same thing. Mother Teresa, same thing, going to adoration, going to prayer. I mean, there's a theme here, Adam, and you are highlighting Mother Angelica, and I know that Dave's going to share from the life of Mother Angelica. We're going to hear more coming up next hour, but you're going back to Rhoda Wise and being a faithful, strong woman and trying to be a productive part of the body of Christ. So continue on, because I really think that I think we get too much into the world, and we really have so many people, so many strong women we can go to in the Bible and just around us, like Tim shared about his mom, Keith shared about his mom and his wife. We have strong women all around us that we should appreciate.
For sure, Deb. I want to share a little bit more about Rhoda, because Rhoda Wise is a saint, or upcoming saint, hopefully, servant of God right now, is someone you can go visit, in the sense that you can go visit the home where all this happened. So Mother Angelica, at some point, I don't know the exact year, bought the property, fixed up the home, built a chapel there, and there's a caretaker who watches over the home, and people are able to visit, which is amazing. Now, I want to share something really cool, because you can go see a miracle with your own eyes any day at Rhoda Wise's house, and here's what it is. So Rhoda's daughter managed the house for some time, and there would be requests for a particular holy water from the house, and here's why. During one of the visits, there was some water. I don't know what kind of container it was in, but the purported apparition of Jesus blessed the water and told Rhoda, "I'm blessing this water that it cure incurable diseases, and it's a gift for people." So she let people know as opportunity came up about this water, and offered to give some to them. And then when it would start running low, maybe about half empty, they would add more water to it, so it never ran out. Well, over the years, word got out about this water and the promise that it would cure diseases. Now, of course, it's not a guaranteed miracle, right? Miracles happen in accord with God's will. So if it's his will, there's been a lot of healings with this water. So her daughter was fulfilling these requests that would come in by mail, and one day was a little bit frustrated with the number of requests and how much work it was and how many people were coming to the house, year after year, and it was kind of running her down. So she was kind of grousing to herself a little bit. And in the midst of that, there was a flash of light, and she saw in this large, it was kind of a bottle like you would see at a water cooler, but it's glass, old style. She saw a flash of light, and then there was a host in the water floating down towards the bottom, as if it had just been dropped into the water. But there was nobody there with a host. There was no host, but one appeared. Now, some people may know that when a host falls on a floor in the church, the procedure, if it's been dirtied in some way, is to put it in a cup of water and let it dissolve, which only takes a couple hours, and eventually it dissolves completely in the water. So here's this host in this water, but it doesn't dissolve. It doesn't swell and fall apart and disappear. It's still there, Deb. To this day, the same glass bottle is still there. The host is still sitting at the bottom. It has never dissolved. It's been decades.
Right.
They still decant water out of this and provide it to people in small holy water bottles. So not only can you go and see what is almost certainly a miracle, I'm not guaranteeing it's a miracle, but it's a host like any other host and that we've all seen. And normally the bread dissolves in the water. It's amazing. I have visited there a number of times and gotten a number of bottles of that water, and actually used it in some different situations and given it to a priest friend for praying with people. But it's really nice. Rhoda, through her yes to God, a number of miracles happened, and she is still giving. Through her strength, through her yes to God, through her yes to the stigmata, through her yes to all of it, God is still moving through the world and affected and helped bring about EWTN.
That's right. That's right. And I think like all of us, nobody's looking for that type of attention or glory or anything. Everybody's just trying to do the will of God, and that's what we have to remember. But it's okay to be strong. It's okay. It's good. It's good to be strong. It's good to be faithful. And and I just think for the next right thing, Adam, I hope you agree with me. The next right thing for our Morning Joy listeners is maybe honor that strong, beautiful, holy woman in your life today. Just say, I just want to honor you and thank you for being being a really good woman, a good person. We have a wonderful, young, strong, holy woman in our Morning Joy group. She's coming up next. We believe she's just a powerhouse, and that's Sissel Anderson. So we'll be listening to her, and I just love that. But it's okay to do that, right, Adam? It's okay to honor those who are really trying to be faithful. And yeah, you do have to have a little bit of strength to do that.
Oh, it's not only okay, but it's good to support each other. We're supposed to love and lift each other up and encourage each other. God is a God of unity and community. And so, yes,
Amen.
support and honor the strong women in your life, particularly the ones that are praying for you. It is so important.
Right. Wow. This was a great segment. We're going to send it back to you, Keith, for more of Morning Joy.